It's like watching your kid run into the street and feeling helpless to save him from being hit by the truck.
I don't want to call attention to the camera work, to the acting, to the writing, to the music.
Rob Reiner changed Hollywood forever with films that have become part of American culture. When Harry Met Sally redefined romantic comedies with its honest look at relationships between men and women. The Princess Bride became a beloved fairy tale that generations quote endlessly. Stand By Me captured childhood friendship in ways that still resonate decades later. A Few Good Men brought courtroom drama to new heights with unforgettable performances. Misery proved he could handle psychological terror with the same skill he brought to romance. Before his directing career took off, he was known to millions as Meathead on the groundbreaking television series All in the Family, a role that made him a household name across America. For 50 years, Rob worked with the biggest stars in the world. He directed them, acted alongside them, and navigated the complex social landscape of Hollywood, where reputation and relationships mean everything. Throughout those 5 decades, he largely kept his personal opinions about his colleagues to himself. He played the game the way most successful people in Hollywood play it, staying diplomatic, avoiding controversy, and maintaining professional relationships. But now, at 77 years old, Rob has decided that silence is no longer worth maintaining. He's reached a point where speaking the truth matters more than protecting feelings or preserving professional courtesy. Rob didn't come to Hollywood as an outsider trying to break in. He was born into it. His father, Carl Reiner, was a comedy legend whose influence shaped an entire generation of entertainment. Growing up in that environment gave Rob something invaluable that most people in the industry never get. He saw real talent up close from childhood. He watched his father work with the best in the business. He learned to recognize the difference between actors who genuinely serve the story they're telling and actors who use every project as a vehicle for their own ego. He witnessed firsthand what professionalism looked like and what it meant when someone lacked it. He understood which behaviors came from dedication to craft and which came from insecurity masked as confidence. Now, as an older man who has seen everything the industry has to offer, Rob has grown tired. He's exhausted from watching mediocre actors receive praise they haven't earned. He's sick of seeing enormous egos destroy potentially great projects. He's done pretending that Hollywood operates as a community of dedicated professionals, when in his view, it's actually filled with emotionally stunted individuals wearing expensive clothes and hiding behind armies of publicists and managers. The 10 actors on his list represent everything Rob finds wrong with modern Hollywood. Some refused to take direction, some treated crew members like servants, some behaved so unprofessionally that productions nearly collapsed. One even cost him a decades-long friendship. Starting from the bottom of his list, Alec Baldwin represents a type of Hollywood behavior that Rob finds both disgusting and unforgivable. Although Rob never directed Baldwin personally, he watched from his position in the industry as Baldwin built a reputation for being nearly impossible to work with over many years. There was the infamous incident where Baldwin threw a phone at someone in a hotel lobby. There was the voicemail message that became public where he called his own young daughter a thoughtless pig, words that shocked people who heard them and raised questions about his temperament. The constant physical altercations with photographers and heated confrontations with journalists became so regular they almost seemed like part of Baldwin's public persona. All of this bothered Rob deeply, but it was the tragic shooting on the set of the film Rust that crystallized his feelings into something harder and more permanent. On that set, Baldwin pointed a gun at cinematographer Helena Hutchins and pulled the trigger without properly checking whether the weapon was loaded with live ammunition. She died from the gunshot wound. Instead of taking full responsibility for her role in the tragedy, Baldwin immediately began shifting blame to other people involved in the production. He pointed fingers at the armorer, who was supposed to check weapons, at the assistant director who handed him the gun, and at the production company for supposedly creating unsafe working conditions. He even made the claim that he never actually pulled the trigger on the gun, a statement that was later proven false through investigation and forensic analysis. Rob has directed dozens of films throughout his career that involved prop weapons and firearms. He knows the safety protocols that are supposed to be followed on every professional film set. The first and most important rule is that the actor themselves must personally check any weapon they're going to handle during a scene. This rule exists exactly for this reason, to prevent tragedies. You never, under any circumstances, put your safety or someone else's life entirely in another person's hands without verifying it yourself. Baldwin broke that fundamental rule of film safety, and a woman died as a direct result of his negligence. Then, instead of owning up to his mistake and showing genuine remorse, he positioned himself as a victim of circumstance and bad luck. This behavior disgusted Rob more than almost anything else on his list of problematic actors. Kevin Spacey worked with Rob on the film A Few Good Men back in 1992. At that time, Spacey had a supporting role in the military courtroom drama. During the entire production, he was completely professional in his behavior and undeniably talented in his performance. Rob had no issues with him during filming and thought of him as simply another skilled actor doing his job well. However, looking back now, after the serious allegations that emerged in 2017, Rob feels physically sick about having ever worked with him at all. Multiple men came forward with detailed accusations of sexual misconduct against Spacey. The stories they told were disturbing in their specifics and credible in their consistency across different victims. Spacey's career ended virtually overnight as the entertainment industry collectively turned away from him. Rob watched this unfold with a complicated mix of emotions. Part of him felt relief that their professional paths had only crossed once during that single film, limiting his association with someone whose behavior was so harmful to others. But he also felt a nagging guilt for not having seen warning signs earlier, even though realistically there may not have been any visible signs during their brief time working together on set.
What bothers Rob most about the entire Spacey situation isn't just Spacey himself and his actions, but what the scandal revealed about the entire industry's moral framework and priorities. According to numerous people who came forward after the scandal broke publicly, Spacey's inappropriate behavior and predatory actions had been an open secret in Hollywood for many years. People made jokes about it at parties and industry gatherings. Insiders knew or strongly suspected what was happening behind closed doors, but nobody did anything about it because Spacey was too talented and too powerful to confront directly. His performances were too good, the projects he was involved in were too successful commercially and critically, and the money he generated for studios was too significant to risk. The industry made a collective decision to protect him because speaking up would have been professionally dangerous for the accusers and financially costly for the studios. Then, when he finally got exposed through journalism rather than through any industry action, everyone in Hollywood acted shocked and surprised. They all pretended they had never heard a single rumor or seen a single red flag about his behavior. Rob finds this collective hypocrisy unbearable to witness. The same industry that constantly lectures the American public about moral values and proper behavior protected a predator for decades purely because he was profitable and talented. This contradiction represents everything Rob has come to despise about modern Hollywood's culture and priorities. Mel Gibson's case is particularly personal because Rob is Jewish. During a drunk driving arrest in 2006, Gibson made explicitly anti-Semitic comments, saying Jews were responsible for all wars in the world. That ended any respect Rob had for him. They had been friendly acquaintances for years, but after the arrest and recordings of Gibson's racist rants, Rob cut off all contact. He publicly said Hollywood shouldn't forgive Gibson or give him more chances,
but Hollywood did forgive him. Gibson directed Hacksaw Ridge and got Oscar nominations. He returned to acting in major films. What makes Rob angriest is how people defended Gibson, saying he was drunk and everyone deserves redemption. Rob believes some things are unforgivable. You don't accidentally become a bigot when you drink. Alcohol reveals who you really are. Gibson revealed himself, and Hollywood decided it didn't matter. Charlie Sheen represents a different problem. Rob directed The American President in 1995, and while Sheen wasn't in it, Rob knew him from Hollywood circles. Back then, Charlie was difficult but functional. Rob watched over 15 years as Charlie transformed into a walking disaster. The public meltdown on 2.5 Men became international news, with tiger blood rants and complete psychological breakdown broadcast everywhere. Most of Hollywood stayed silent, but Rob called the behavior pathetic and sad. What bothered Rob wasn't just the drug use or bizarre statements, it was how Charlie turned his mental breakdown into entertainment. He charged people money to watch him rant on stage. He sold his dysfunction as a product. Rob believes Charlie represents Hollywood's sickness. The industry creates monsters by giving them unlimited money and zero consequences. Then, when they inevitably implode, everyone acts surprised. Charlie was enabled for decades. His breakdown was predictable and preventable, but nobody cared enough to stop it. Rob heard stories about Jared Leto's method acting, including sending dead rats to co-stars and staying in character 24 hours a day. Rob found it all juvenile and disrespectful to real filmmaking. He's worked with actual method actors like Dustin Hoffman, Kathy Bates, and James Caan. They prepared intensely and lived inside their characters, but they never tortured their co-workers or made everyone miserable to prove dedication. When Rob was asked about possibly working with Leto, he declined immediately. He doesn't have patience for actors who confuse being difficult with being talented. Real actors make the process easier, not harder. What Rob finds most annoying is how the industry praised Leto's behavior, calling it commitment and fearlessness. Rob called it what it was, an entitled actor with an oversized ego thinking he's more important than everyone else on set. That's narcissism, not art. Rob and Russell Crowe could have worked together multiple times, but Rob passed on all projects with Crowe attached. The reason was simple: too many stories about Crowe's violent temper. The phone-throwing incident where Crowe hit a hotel employee in the face made international news. He was arrested and charged. Stories of Crowe fighting with directors, producers, and journalists were common. Rob believes there's no excuse for violence. You can be passionate without assaulting people. Crowe's defenders said he was just intense and committed. Rob said that's nonsense. Plenty of actors are intense without being physically dangerous. What bothers Rob most is how Hollywood forgave Crowe quickly. He kept getting major roles and big paychecks. The industry sent a clear message that violence is acceptable if you're talented enough. Rob finds that morally bankrupt. Sean Penn presents a unique case because Rob is also politically active, but he finds Penn's activism annoying, self-righteous, and counterproductive. Penn treats every political statement like he's delivering commandments from a mountain. He goes to war zones, meets with dictators, and writes articles positioning himself as a deep thinker on global issues. He acts like celebrity makes him qualified to solve international conflicts. Rob finds this celebrity activism embarrassing and harmful. They've been at the same political events for years, and people say that tension is obvious. They're on the same side politically, but can't stand each other personally. Penn takes himself too seriously, and Rob thinks Penn's ego undermines the causes he claims to support. What really annoys Penn is his history of violence combined with moral preaching. Penn has multiple assault arrests and allegedly tied up and abused Madonna, though she later downplayed it. You can't preach about justice and human rights while having a history of hurting people. That's hypocrisy at its worst. Rob respects Tom Cruise's work ethic and dedication to stunts, but he can't respect someone deeply involved in Scientology. The organization's documented abuse of members, the disconnection policy that destroys families, and the exploitation and manipulation horrify Rob. What makes it worse is how Tom uses his fame to recruit for Scientology. He's not just a member, but an active promoter, bringing people into an organization that has ruined countless lives. Rob believes this makes Tom complicit in their abuse.
They've crossed paths at industry events for 40 years. Rob keeps his distance, polite but cold. He would never work with Tom, not because Tom isn't talented, but because Rob couldn't stomach collaborating with someone who supports what he considers a dangerous cult. When asked in interviews about directing crews, Rob gives diplomatic non-answers. But people close to Rob know the truth. He thinks Tom is a phenomenal actor who sold his soul to an organization that destroys people. No amount of box office success makes that acceptable. The Jack Nicholson situation hurts Rob deeply because it involves losing a real friendship. Jack and Rob were friends for decades. They worked together on A Few Good Men, where Jack's performance as Colonel Jessup became legendary. The "You Can't Handle the Truth" scene is one of cinema's greatest moments. They should have worked together again, but something changed. According to people close to both men, the break came gradually. Jack became more isolated and difficult. He stopped returning calls and backed out of projects at the last minute, destroying trust. Rob tried to stay connected, reaching out repeatedly, but Jack pushed everyone away with distance rather than anger. The man who used to be generous and social became a ghost who only appeared at Lakers games. What broke Rob's heart was watching Jack retire out of fear. Jack was afraid of memory loss and embarrassing himself, so he just stopped working. Rob believes that was cowardice from someone he once thought was fearless. The Jack he knew would have kept working until he physically couldn't. The Jack who disappeared chose safety over art. At the top of Rob's list is Woody Allen, the name that makes his blood boil. Allen is the director Hollywood protected for decades, despite credible allegations of child sexual abuse. Rob has been one of Allen's most vocal critics and doesn't care who that offends. Dylan Farrow accused Woody of molesting her when she was 7 years old. Multiple investigations happened. The situation was complicated, but credible evidence suggested something terrible occurred. Hollywood mostly ignored it because Woody made prestigious films. Rob watched actors line up to work with Woody. Scarlett Johansson, Kate Winslet, and Timothée Chalamet, before he backed out, all knew the allegations. They worked with him anyway because it was good for their careers. Rob finds that morally reprehensible. What makes Rob angriest is how the industry defended Woody. The same industry that claims to care about abuse and believe victims made an exception for Woody because he was Woody Allen. They decided his art mattered more than Dylan Farrow's trauma. At 77, Rob isn't making many more films. He spent his capital and burned bridges by speaking uncomfortable truths. These 10 actors continue working or retired with their legacies mostly intact. The industry forgave them or ignored their crimes, and Rob watched it all with growing disgust. Maybe he's too harsh, maybe he expects too much, or maybe he's right. Maybe Hollywood needs more people willing to call out monsters instead of protecting them. These 10 actors represent everything wrong with an industry that values talent and profit over accountability and basic human decency. Rob has decided that staying silent is worse than speaking up, even if it costs him professionally. After 5 decades in Hollywood, he's earned the right to tell the truth as he sees it, and he's no longer interested in playing the game that keeps bad behavior hidden behind expensive publicists and carefully managed reputations.